Kirill, good afternoon. Welcoming all of you from rainy Moscow. Actually, we have rain here too, so we are with you in every sense. Okay, lots of compassion for each other because of this sad circumstance. Yeah, it's a pleasure to see all of you. Kirill, would you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself and about your role in this roundtable discussion? Yes, I'm Kirill Soloviev, and since quite a while ago I have been in this industry for about 13 years. I was a freelance translator and managing projects in a translation agency. I have spent a number of years in localization with a big customer, and recently I established my own company, my technology startup, which is called ContentQuo, and our goal is to help this industry become a bit more transparent and more result-oriented as far as quality management is concerned. We provide technology solutions, technology product. We develop it to enable companies to provide meaningful answers to an interesting question. Namely, when we offer some translation quality to our customers, if we are a translation company, or we offer it to our end users, if we are a company buying translation and localization services, so how would this quality affect our business performance? Because we need that translation for our business performance. That's the whole story. Literally several hours ago, I came back from Dublin, where I presented at the TAUS event, which was precisely about assessing and managing translation quality, and I will be very pleased to share something we discussed there with our dear audience, and I also share my ideas and probably comments on something mentioned by Svetlana. So you have managed to see the presentation and questions, right? Well, unfortunately, I haven't seen the presentation. I connected just recently, but you had these questions on this flip chart, and I do appreciate these questions, and I would be pleased to discuss them, because we also mentioned TAS DKF model here, and we considered it, and it would also be of interest to us to hear what you think about it. Well, I haven't also mentioned that I'm an official TAS representative for quality management issues, translation quality management issues, and I provide consultancy to translation departments in big companies and translation agencies about quality management, including the use of TAS technology, not only that one, but also technologies, products, concepts, and approaches which are the best in certain sorts of situations. So I would gladly answer some questions if they are about what TAS is doing for quality management. I'll also answer those. Are there any questions, dear colleagues? Please use the microphone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I can hear you, but unfortunately I cannot see you as yet. Well, as my understanding is that you offer a translation quality assessment methodology in terms of how it meets clients' expectations. Well, is my understanding correct? Not exactly. I would say that we believe that without evaluating, without assessing the impact of translation quality on the final result, on business performance, for which this translation was first ordered in the first place, it doesn't make much sense to discuss quality management as such, because quality management and quality as such is not the goal of its own. It's just an instrument, a tool, some mechanism to achieve certain goals, certain objectives with certain efforts. This is my view of this area, and we want to help the industry in resolving these issues, and quality management and methodologies and everything is part of this process, of course, but that's more technical aspect. Literally yesterday we discussed a process whereby feedback is requested from the customer, and I know that in-text requests feedback from customers for each and every project. We have been using it for about 1 year. Dear Kirill, how many of your clients, which percentage of your client provides feedback? Could you introduce yourself, please? I'm Yuri Tsvirkun, Profpereklad, Kiev. Are you a translation agency? Is my understanding correct? Right, right. I'm afraid I will not be able to answer your question as it is, because we are a technology company, and of course we are not involved in processing customers' feedback in the same way as you do it. Kirill, I'm sorry, but, well, I was asking Kirill Fedotov, which is who's standing in front of me. Then I'm sorry, dear colleagues. Well, oh, I didn't really understand it from the distance. Microphone, please. Use the microphone. We have the same situation. We receive feedback from about 10% of our clients. And here I have a question for you, Kirill. How could we evaluate the impact of our product on the target business performance of the client if just 10% of the clients are ready and willing to spend their time on providing feedback to us based on our experience? Or, well, very good question, Yuri. Very good question you asked. That's precisely the problem which we want to resolve. To this end, we created our company and we developed this product to make life easier, to enable you to have much more information on how your translation helped your company and your customer in achieving some goals. I think the situation is this. Feedback is quite an abstract category, quite an abstract notion, which is more about quality management. And I think I am more interested, and we make quite some efforts in our startup company in order to understand not just what happened about quality, but how this quality affected something more important, how it's affected your customer's business. Feedback is part of this process. It's some component in a holistic assessment of the quality, but this is not the only one, and probably even not the most, maybe not the most important component. Well, I hope I have answered your question. Cyril, but could it happen that as a side effect of your activities, feedback will become more attractive for customers, and, say, Yuri will also win as a result? I mean, people will understand in a more obvious way that it's needed, and the logical end point will be not when the translation is received, but when we get an assessment of how this translation affects, what is the impact of the translation of the final product. You're exactly right, Svetlana. I do hope that it will happen this way. Look, one of our goals is, well, we can call it our ideology or whatever, but we want to help companies who order translations as customers, and we want to help companies who sell translations to join efforts in a more transparent way. That's probably it. That's why in Dublin at the Taos event I discussed transparency a lot, and you have provided a very good example about feedback and existence of feedback as one of the basic pillars for that transparency, and I hope that we'll promote it for translation companies too, and to explain to translation customers, companies ordering translations, that it's important for their vendors and for themselves. Look, also, as you were speaking, I got some impression that it may also be important because as machine translation technologies develop and use of machine translation develops, this is a process where transparency is of utmost importance. And I think that when relationships are built based on some objective parameters and expectations, to that end, we need it in the MT area. We have some special approach in this machine translation area, because we get a feeling, and Paul mentioned it in his presentation too, that translation assessment tools that he often discusses also take into account the existence of machine translation and development of machine translation, because translators want to assess their efforts and customers want to understand what they could expect and what is the cost of that quality when some extra technology tools are used. That's why, I started thinking about these things when we started discussing higher transparency, improving transparency in the relationship. Yeah, transparency around machine translation is a multifaceted thing, I think. Starting with the very basic aspects, companies are quite often interested in whether machine translation is used or not, but there are also some more sophisticated issues, tricky issues, which you, Svetlana, described in a nice way, like what is the cost of providing, assuring the required quality level, and whether it's a good strategy for this customer, for this content, to use machine translation. Yes. Let me approach you. Please introduce yourself. Good afternoon. I'm Vladimir Likutin from Techpereklad company. Tech translation company. I have two questions. Well, one question, but it has two parts. You have mentioned that you evaluate the impact on the customer's business. So the customer's view of whether translation is good or bad is a different thing. If you assess the impact on customer's business, for example, if we are discussing technical document translation, then we should issue two sets of technical documents, one with translation reviewed and another one with raw translation, and this set will be sold in one city and the other set in a different city, and then we should compare the results. How else could we assess the impact on the business? If you're talking about objective assessment, not just views. If you're talking about customers' views, it's very important to know who expresses these views. If the person placing that order is an engineer, for example, in my case, when it's about technical documentation, that engineer will assess the technical correctness of that translation, whether the right terminology is used in the translation, and so on. But people of more humanitarian background, or for example a secretary in a company, would rather assess the linguistic quality as such, and how will the quality of this document affect the final result, the final performance of the company. This is a sophisticated, complicated question, and it's very difficult, and it's absolutely impossible to track it down from starting with those views and feedback provided with the customer. You're exactly right, Alexander. No, I'm Vladimir. Sorry, dear Vladimir, you're exactly right in clearly splitting using this boundary, which we ourselves also use. The level of feedback is the level where we work with quality, where we handle quality. And I believe one of the most interesting questions and the trickiest ones in this industry is this, and that's why we consider it with our startup. That's about understanding whether there is any relation between these two things. And I can tell you even more. Based on the results of my discussions with colleagues last week in Dublin, it happens quite often that, for example, in machine translation, even large companies with big, serious departments, companies who invest a lot in MT, in machine translation, and they want to improve quality of machine translation, they cannot confirm with any objective evidence that the quality of machine translation, improved quality of machine translation, really has any impact on their business performance. We had a very good example on our Taos event when we had a presentation from eBay. You may be aware of eBay, quite a big online e-commerce store, US-based, and that's exactly what they were discussing. And I believe this is an ideal illustration to what you described, like when a secretary's view is quite often completely different and has nothing in common with what would actually affect in a positive way, have a positive impact on the result of using that translation. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't work with these things. Back to the previous question, we are a service company, and we all understand all too well that if we don't process customers' feedback, then we'll definitely fail, even if we provide a translation which makes ideal impact on customers' performance. These are two components, and I have some hierarchy in my head. The most important question, if at all possible to answer, is probably this. For example, when you mention technical documentation sold into different cities, in such cases it's very difficult from a technical perspective to gather information quickly about any impact on business performance. It would be very difficult in your example. So we mostly focus on digital industry digital area, where it's possible to quickly get information about how the translation affects results, affects performance using standard applications, analytical tools, metrics, and so on. So basically, if you can get information about that outcome of the translation, about its result, its outcome, its performance, then it would be great. If not, then we are bound to using feedback, and unfortunately feedback is not always objective and not always comprehensive enough to take into account every aspect of quality, but this is just one of the many tools, one of the many methods to assess quality of your translation. And there are also all the other tools in the industry. This is my view of this area. I hope I have answered your question. Yes, thank you. I am Igor Zavadsky from Logrus. Look, it turns out that you suggest that we should evaluate correlation in a multi-factor model. There is a result, outcome, business performance like profit, number of customers, market share, sales volumes. So we are not talking about a linguistic company, but about, say, cars, medicines, and so on. And there are inputs which affect those profits, sales volumes, and so on. And there could be dozens of those, even more of those, 20 or so. And translation of documents is just one of those this is a negligible factor. I would never believe that the correlation between the profit and the document translation could be any higher than, say, 10%. So this is far from being scientific. If you measure that correlation using scientific method, there will be 9 other factors of much higher importance, like how successful a particular manager is, what is the product quality itself, whatever. You may want to list 10 dozen more important factors. So how could this less important factor could be identified when there are 10 more important ones? This is not scientific at all. The only type of feedback which you could get from the customer is a subjective view of customers, employees, or ultimate clients. Like, do you like this document or not? Whether you can understand it or not. We can do it this way, but this is not a business parameter. This is a subjective view, and Vladimir clearly splitted it into subjective and objective. So I see no possibility at all to assess any impact on objective business performance, business parameters made by this negligible factor in the general business landscape. Thank you. Well, I could answer if I may. I think this is an interesting example.
So you spoke about Amazon company and the eBay, and I would like to tell you about Amazon. So, for example, any online platform, we have a machine translation of with bad quality and Russian-speaking user. So sees this product, sees poor quality, and so also we have the good quality translation, and the person wants to buy this product. So this is the direct correlation, the impact of the quality of the translation of the selling of the product. We cannot measure it, but I would buy a product with a good description with no machine translation at all. It was a kind of use the microphone, please. Further from Logrus, so I would buy there where we have good profession. So the AliExpress, the volume of sales with quite not very good quality of translation is very, very big. So if they understand and it is profitable for them, they would buy it anyway. Please use the microphone, please. Leonid Glazachev, Logrus IT. So it's the same as Igor told us. It would be great to have a better translation if we can do the one factor experiment, so sell with bad quality, then sell with the good quality and compare it. And but we have the multi-factors experiments, so we doesn't matter what we sell. So the prices matter, the common understanding is matters. Well, if the user is ready to spend more time on reading and buy it 1,000 hryvnias cheaper, it would be better for him. But we speak about this experiment. So, Kirill, can you explain what you do? So you don't support us, don't the power to assess the quality impact. You use tools. Can you explain to people, because I have a feeling that you, what you do, we cannot understand what really you do. Well, in fact, so you know, it's quite an interesting thesis. Well, I don't remember that I spoke in details what we do, so and I have quite another different viewpoint on what I'm talking. So you are right. I think everybody is right here. So Kirill was the closest. And I try to help to our listeners to come. So, and I would like to raise the aspect, to add the aspect. And I've been telling you about the examples about eBay, where the correlation between the machine translation and the quality of sales, there is no any correlation. But what was it interesting? So why this industry is involved in the quality of translation? Because we cannot show that quality. If we have better quality, it can impact somehow on your business performances. And why then these services need you need these services. So, and probably with joint efforts using the one factor, single factor analysis, and using the feedback from the end users and clients, because their opinion are much more important than the opinion of the company which does not buy the product. And probably we will can cast more light on this issue, and so this is my point. Kirill, you're talking about quality translation. I have a slide, and I can show it. This is about the percentages. So it means what percent of buyers would buy the product if they didn't have the information on their language, and on the contrary, the poor quality, and you're talking about good quality, the quality. So, and you compare the sales volume with good quality, with machine translation. So am I right? So this is very interesting question, and here's my philosophy is the following. So we cannot speak about the perfect quality, the absolute quality, and I speak about, in English it is called good enough quality. It's quite enough to achieve the goals, the purposes the translation was ordered. So, and if it is enough to have the raw unedited quality for as a machine translation provides, so it's quite good to solve this business task, business solution. And if we cannot show why we need additional investments, so the quality doesn't matter. But you should measure this quality. Yes, that's right. So, and you tackled it a little in Paul's presentation, quite good data stream for that. So are there any more questions? Yes, I've just thought, and unfortunately, Paul cannot be here, and probably we can arrange the webinar and we can discuss these questions in future and add questions. So how can we define good enough quality? The translator cannot hear. Please use the microphones. So, Leonid, again, it would be great pleasure for me. Offline, I would express my viewpoint. We consider this question. We understand the boundaries. I mean, Kirill was telling. So we're translating. The quality is worse, and how can we define the boundaries? How we define the bottom line? So how much can we save on translation? No, this is not the correct approach. What requirements should we put in every case, depending on the context and the purpose of the translation? It's a very interesting question. We have a kind of methodology. No, we're not talking about metrics, but we're talking about methodology. So and I, with pleasure, will talk about that. Please come to our standpoint. I would like to repeat it on the webinar, but unfortunately I won't be able to come to your stand. Yes, it would be a great idea to have a number of webinars, to follow the UTIC, and we will in detail speak on that topic. So anyway, thank you very much, Kirill. Thank you very much for your invitation. Please have a good session, good conference. So see you in future.